So what I do need to know is what's the diameter of my opening. And hopefully the piece of wood I brought for the top is big enough. They're a little over 5 3/4 in there. Oh yeah, we're over 6, we're good. And hopefully a piece of my jam chuck is big enough. Yeah. Well, maybe. We'll be all right. Okay, so next thing we got to do is get a piece of wood that's going to become the top and put that in there, put a tenon on it just the way we did before, and then we're going to make a jamb fit so that this will be chucked in here, and then it's going to hold this so that I can take the tenon off the bottom. Now I'm not actually going to take the tenon off the bottom because I need to take this home yet and be able to hold it so that I can sand the whole piece. So I won't actually take the tenon off right now, but I'll show you how I do that. Got my center marked. This is 5/4 hard maple now. So I buy it unsurfaced. Get it a little thicker that way, and you don't, you know, when they surface it, that would be 1 inch thick. I could surface that and come up with maybe 1 1/8 or 1 inch, a little bit more. But it's also less expensive if you buy it unsurfaced.
Where do you buy it?
I buy it at either Hardwoods Inc. in Mapleton or Peace State Lumber up in, was that Kennesaw?
Kennesaw.
Or Swanee, I don't know. I haven't gotten there in a while, but I did used to go to Swanee all the time because it was probably the closest, and I didn't have to stay on 285 too long. All right, so I got to put a tenon on this, and I want the tenon to be as small as I can possibly get away with this, because this is going to be the lid. Okay. Setting up my dovetail, making sure I got a nice sharp corner. Actually, for a tenon that small, whether I made the dovetail or not, it's not going to make a difference. Now I got to surface this side. Okay, so now what I got to do is I have to make sort of a big tenon here that'll fit inside here. And it's got to fit really tightly so that it'll hold this so that I can spin this together with that to remove the tenon. Okay, again, I won't actually remove the tenon, but you'll see what I mean. Now, I don't get too many chances at this because this is all the wood I got. So what I like to do is just use a parting tool. And I go in this way with it. And I always start out way big. Now usually I measure. But I just want to see where that brings me. And it should be way, way too big. Yeah. Okay. So what I normally would do is I would measure my calipers, which are here somewhere. Usually for smaller objects, I would measure with these calipers on the inside, and then I'd scribe a line. But these won't open far enough for that, so instead what I do is, I could use that, is I need to know what the diameter is of the inside. And it's somewhere slightly over 5 3/4. So I need to know what half of that is. So half of 5 3/4 is 2 7/8, right? So I could use these. Set this at 2 7/8. And that's half of it. Right? 2 7/8. Start that at 2 7/8. Should be 5 3/4. Yes. Okay. So then I could use this to scribe a line. Now when you do this, make sure you're only touching the wood with the surface here, not with the point there. So this point sort of lines up with the center. This one scribes a line. So that's about where I need to be. That line right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay, so now what I'm going to go, and I'm going to start nibbling away at that. So that's about where I need to be. Is that big or small? I don't know. I mean, I just said about 5 3/4. I took half of it. So I'm always going to stay safe. I'm always going to stay safe and keep working my way to it. So to start out with, I'll take about half of this away. And I test it. So this is all trial and error.
You're making a cut about how deep?
1/8 of an inch or so. I mean, just for now, because this is the test cut. So if I screw this up and make this too small, I haven't wasted that much wood. Then I can just go a little deeper. Now I'll take half of what I got left. Remember, if I take away 1/16 of an inch, I'm taking away 1/8 of an inch. Because I'm taking 1/16 off that side and 1/16 off that side. So be very, very careful and take as little as possible, and lots of trial until you get it right. So now I'm getting close. I'm about halfway on.
Is that the same way you do a lid on your small box?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's the same way you make a jam chuck for just about anything. So now I'm getting close, and now I'm going to take very, very small cuts here. Because what always happens is that last cut is when you went too small. Jimmy Clues always says, you're just removing dust, just dust. See, now I took off too much. That little tiny bit is just too much. But it's fine, because I really haven't wasted anything yet. So now I just go a little deeper. And now I'm going to sort of taper it. So I'm going to line up with where I am, but I'm going to bring my tool in this way, so I'm not going parallel with the lathe. So basically to put a taper on this thing.
So at the end you'll have to tape cut to the...
And it's still too loose. See, some days you get a dog, some days you get a hydrant. Now, there's other things you can still do. I mean, if you didn't have the wood to spare, you could wet this and let the grain swell up, and it'll fit really nice. I'm that close. You could also take a paper towel, put it over that, and then just wedge this in over the paper towel.
So really, you have a little fudge factor here then, by doing it that way.
Very, very little.
Yeah, okay.
So now it's too tight, and this wood being so hard, it doesn't move at all. It doesn't give. Now probably going to be too loose. Here we are.
For these boxes in particular, in the end, we want them to be a little loose, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
We're not fitting the lid, yeah.
I'm not fitting the lid yet. Now I want a friction jam chuck so that I can,
Okay.
so that this can stay on here and turn. That's too loose. I mean, that's a perfect fit. There's no slop in it, but it's still too loose. So what I would do at this point is I'll wet this. I don't have a paper towel, well, maybe I do, but just wet this, soak it up a little bit.
You need a paper towel?
I probably have them in my toolbox. Oh, we have some right behind you. But this will probably do it. You can just put this over it like that. That's usually enough. See, that's on there pretty good now. So, of course, I would bring the tailstock up anyway. With the life center in it. That usually helps. So I bring this up like that. And I would turn away as all of this as possible, just leaving whatever's left under the tailstock. Then I would remove the tailstock and take away that last little bit. Okay? The other thing that I always do on the bottom of the piece is always put a little decoration on the bottom. So I put a couple rings around the outside, a couple rings in the middle. Don't have to do that. Just makes it look like you put a little extra effort into it. That's all done with the point tool. So that's all done while the piece is spinning.
Now, do you make the bottom perfectly flat, or you concave?
I would concave the bottom so that it doesn't always, so it doesn't rest on the whole bottom all at once. So it's really only resting around the outer part of the bottom here.
Don't you have to turn the lid first? Use the lid?
Yeah, but I'm using the lid as a jam chuck for now,
Right.
so I can finish up the piece, the bottom of the piece.
Yeah, but don't you keep the lid in here, turn it around, use that tenon to finish?
No.
Oh, you don't?
I'll turn another jam chuck for the lid later.
Ah, okay.
Okay. So you need two you got to jam chuck the top and you got to jam chuck the bottom. So one of them, you could use it for the other, and then whichever one is left, you need a jam chuck or a bigger chuck. So I have a jam chuck here that I use for the lid. Okay, and I'll use this for the lid when we get to it. But if you've got a chuck with big enough jaws, you can grip the lid in your chuck. I do have a chuck big enough to do that, but most people don't. I've got it.
That's the one with the little rubber thing.
That's where it's
No, not the cold jaws. I've got a big mark with,
Slice that off.
I've got a big mark that I've got to hook up to a 6-inch or something jaws on it. So that would be big enough, because the tenon on here is like 5 3/4, so I know I can grab that in a chuck. So just to put some lines on it, I'm only going to put one little one here, just using the point tool, just something like that. Okay, but again, I'm going to flatten, turn the whole bottom, remove the tenon, do all that at home later on. Okay, so that's the way we do jam chucking. And if this is held on there tight enough, I should be able to turn this and remove this with no tailstock support. And you see that was on there pretty tight. I would have been able to do that. Again, I would take very light cuts while the tailstock's away, but I could have done it. Okay,
And your cuts would be directed toward the headstock,
Yes.
not across.
so it's the headstock, not that way.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the size of the inside of the piece for a tight fit. Now I can relieve it so that it's no longer a suction fit, and I can shape the rest of the lid. Okay? So when I do the lids, I like to remove some of the wood on the inside and put a little decoration in there so that it also removes some of the weight from the lid so that it doesn't weigh 2 pounds when you pick it up. Okay? So this piece had a much smaller opening. That one that I did over there had a much smaller opening than this one does. So I could see that there. So I'm not going to have much leftover wood here, because I can't change the diameter of this. That's got to stay there, except for hair to loosen the fit a little bit. So to loosen that fit, I would just take my party tool or whatever, a little scraper or something, and I would just barely touch it. This is kiln dry wood, so so it's not going to move. And that's about enough to go into the piece. So I've got about 1/4 of an inch there, and that's enough to go in, okay? So that it sits in there. So this is everything I have outside the piece right now is what I got left to make my lid out of. All right, so this lid, I turned it like a pot lid, just rounded this over here, and sort of gently rounded it up to the top. And I drill a little hole in the top to put a knob in. So we'll do the inside part of it first, which is just bowl gouge work. There we go. Just remember, you can't go as deep as you want to go, because that's all you got. You're basically cutting a very shallow hole in here. I could probably go a little deeper than that, but we'll see what that looks like. Get rid of all those compression marks that the gouge leaves behind. Then I would put a couple beads in the middle. So this one I put 1, 2, 3 beads in there. You don't have to do
Hold that for
that.
just a second, Harvey. Harvey, hold that one more time, please.
Put a couple of beads in there. You don't have to do that. This kind here, you know, you're making it out of spectra ply, and you want that to come through, well then you could drill all the way through, make a tenon long enough so that it comes all the way through, and then round off the other side of it so that it looks like you really intended to do that. And you know, that actually looks like you spent a lot of work doing it, and it isn't. So that's just another thing you could do, is make your stub go all the way through instead of having it blind. All right, so we'll put a couple of 3 beads in here. So I'll start right about there, just marking them off. I think I got the 1/4 inch tool. And then on this side, we'll thin this out a bit. So it's basically a big bead we're making here. Working at a tough spot up against the headstock here. So ideally this should be finished after I reverse the piece. So I'll get as much of it out of the way as I can. Clean this little fritz up in there. Mark off your fit for your jam chuck. Just use the center point to hold that on there like that. And then take your trusty pencil. Now I kind of know that's where I got to be. So got to be inside. This is going to be the outside, that's going to be the inside. I'm cutting a recess in here now to hold this. So this is the opposite of the jamb chuck we did before. So since this is a recess, you got to get wood out of the inside. And let's see where we are. Barely in there. And knowing how fast it creeps up on you. So that's why I like making the jamb chucks out of a softer wood, like that piece of poplar there, so that you got a little give. This hard maple has no give at all.
What's the depth of your recess there, Harvey?
This here, less than 1/8 right now. I think we're in there. Now that's in there so tight it will not come out. I will have to pry this out, or I have to just go in here with a party tool and turn away my little step that I made there so that I pop it out. Okay, but that is in there so tight, right now it will never come out, and it's running nice and true. So now we can finish off the lid. Just shape the top of the lid. Remember, I did hollow out some of the inside. I didn't go very deep. At least I hope I didn't. Because when the inside meets the outside, then you know you went from deep there. Usually you can hear it. Another thing my wife tells me is I'm deaf. Huh? All right, so I kind of like the way I'm going here. Now, Kevin, who doesn't like shear scraping on his robust
Low
breast here.
profile, robust.
Oh, low profile.
Yeah.
I don't see what the difference is, so
Seems
here.
like It sticks out so much far, and I can't get it to hit the.
If you can't get the handle down to your knee, it's okay to keep it up here, as long as the handle's lower than the tip. See, this is
I
perfect.
couldn't even get it like that.
With the
Low
marrow in your
profile
knee?
seems like it goes out too far. I mean, basically hits the bottom of the tool rest there and
So
everything.
grind it away. So I made more of a mess of it doing that than I did off this. I got all this tear out on it now. I actually like the way it looked better, so I'll just recut it. Here, you don't have to wait for it to dry. Just give it a spritz. And I use this because you could use it indoors without getting blasted. If you use some of the lacquer things, you'd be high as a kite in no time. And then I don't even wait for it to dry. I just come and recut it. And that's pretty much smooth as glass right now. Okay, so nice fit. So now when I turn, I'm not going to go this way. I'm going to go into the piece. So all the pressure is pushing the piece into the jamb chuck, not out of it. Okay, so I'm going to go this way. And I'm going to take very light cuts. I'm gonna make sure I like the way the curve goes, that I didn't come to a peak over here. Okay, now I'm going to drill a little hole in there. Before I do that, I just want to put a little dimple in there, so the drill bit has something to seat in. And to drill a hole, I like to put a little 1/2-inch hole in there, so when I make my knob, I put a 1/2-inch tenon on the knob. And I prefer using Forstner bit because Forstner bit doesn't wander. If I were to go in there, even if I made a bigger dimple, if I go in there with a regular twist drill bit, it never wants to go center. It always wants to go somewhere else. So you wind up making a hole that's bigger than a 1/2 inch, when all you really want is a 1/2 inch. So I have a 1/2-inch Forstner bit mounted in one of these things that go right in the Morse taper. And I'm just going to go in about 1/8 of an inch. So you slowly lay down when you drill. So I go about half the depth of the Forstner bit.
Was that one of those special Forstner bits, or is it just a regular one with an adapter?
Well, these are those maxi cut bits, the German company, but it doesn't have to be that. I mean, if you have a regular 1/2-inch Forstner bit and a drill chuck that goes in there, that's fine. These are more expensive. They're really, really good bits, though.
Tell us about the adapter.
The adapter is fits your Morse taper, so you don't have to use a chuck. This is also made by Maxi Cut, which is some German company. It's got you need a wrench to get this out of here. So this twist. Oh, this one actually came out. This has a twist fit. It goes in and it twist locks in there, so it doesn't pull out. And then you twist it to get it out. They also make extenders so that you can drill deep holes. And the extender goes in here, twists in, and then the drill bit goes into the other end, the extender, and twists. So they all have this twist lock type of mechanism. Usually I can never get them out by hand. I usually have to take them out with wrenches. So there's several ways I could do this. I could take a parting tool and I could very gently put it in the space. That's why I only went in a little bit. I didn't go in and bottom out. Yeah, so I didn't put the whole 10 in there. So this way I could put this in here and I could gently pry it out. Just keep going around it a little bit at a time until I pop it out. Or I could take the parting tool and I could turn away this mass over here. Remember, this is just a jamb chuck here. What I'll do is I'll put the tailstock in there.
You hadn't ground down your skew.
I could do that too. I have other skews, but it'll fit just nice and hold it in there without marring anything. So you can just sort of turn away most of the fitting until you can pull it out. So I'm staring up here and looking at the difference in the profiles. And once this profile of the jamb chuck comes up to the same profile as the other one, here we go. I should be able to pull that right out of there now. All right, so we've turned the canister, we've turned the lid. Now we just got to turn a little knob, and then you can go home. Of something or other, I don't know what it is. I think it was maybe Gonzalo Alves. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah,
Tigerwood.
Tigerwood, is that the word? But we'll use this piece of stuff here. If it fits the joint, I don't know if it'll even, maybe too small. Let's see. All right, we're good. Put that on the side. Now, we're going to make a lid, a knob, And then in the knob, we need to embed one of these beads. By the way, does anybody need beads? Anybody? Yeah, he's got some. So I got some from GAW here, so if anybody needs them, take them, but please only take what you're going to use. So now we got to also embed that in the top of the knob. Now, you can do that several different ways. So what I do is I just cut a little recess in there that's about the diameter of that, and I put it there, and then I epoxy it in. Don't use CA glue, because CA glue is very brittle, and if they drop this, it will probably pop out. Now, how do I know that it comes out very easily when you use CA glue? So, Del knows. When I put this one in, I CA glued that in there. So what I did is I put some CA glue inside the hole, and I sprayed a little bit of accelerator on the back of the bead, and I put it in. But I put it in crooked. And it grabbed right away, and I couldn't turn it to line this up with the grain of that Spectraply stuff. So it was sort of diagonal. And it was killing me. It was killing me. So I said, just this morning, I said, I got to be able to see if I can get this out. So I just went in here with just a tiny little thing to pry it out, and it popped right out. I mean, it really wasn't held in there at all. So if you're going to put these in there, use epoxy or something stronger than, okay? So there's several ways you can do this. You can measure it with your calipers and then find a Forstner bit that's as close as you can get. And this measures just over 3/4 of an inch, it looks like. About a 64th over 3/4. So if you had a 3/4 Forstner bit, you could drill a 3/4 hole and then just make it a tiny bit bigger. What I usually do is by the time I find the Forstner bit, I can have the hole made. So I just take my parting tool and I use that. And how deep you want to go in is another thing. I like to go in deep enough so that I cover up the hole. Okay? Now, if you've ever seen any of the ones that Wes Jones does, Wes Jones cuts quite a deep hole in there, and then he puts like a little metal pin through here so that the bead spins inside the hole. You know, so it flips inside the hole like that. Gives you something to play with. So that's something you could do too if you'd like to. So I've already cut that too big. So I will reshape my knob. That's what I get for not measuring first. I always measure the size of the tenon. So I'll take my calipers and I measure the hole that I drilled with it. Using the same drill bit, so that's how I know the size of my tenon needs to be. I know that's way too big there. But now I have something to measure it with. Almost there. Of course, I would sand the knob up. Now remember, I left the hole in there that's about 1/8 of an inch deep, so I want to make sure the tenon is less than 1/8 of an inch. Whoa, don't do that. I just put a nice ding in it. Need to be glued in, so then you put your little BD in there. You get the rest of your box, sand it all up, finish it, and there you go.